G'day everyone, and welcome to our second Transform for Tomorrow webinar. This is assessment, focusing specifically on forms. My name is Troy Waller. I am your Microsoft Learning Delivery Specialist, specifically for Southern states, but obviously this is a national event, so I'm more than happy to be diving into your space a little bit today as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on assessment using forms as a tool. I think you're going to find that that's actually way cool, and the things that it can actually do, I hope, is going to blow you away somewhat. So what we're going to do is I'm going to jump back into my PowerPoint now, and I'm going to take you through some of the cool things that you can do in forms. Now, firstly, though, I do want to remind you that we have a blog post tied to today's webinar, and that's at aka.ms/T4T-assessment. Okay, aka.ms/T4T-assessment. And that's the blog post that's tied specifically to today's webinar, but also there's going to be some links and other bits and pieces in there for you. Now let's think about our webinar's agenda. So I'm going to take you into the Microsoft Educator community first. I'm going to show you around there because there's some really cool things in there for you. Then what we're going to do is we're going to jump into forms and we're going to create an assessment. Then I'm going to show you how to check the results of that assessment, We're going to look at the settings and the sharing as well. And then we're also going to play around with forms in PowerPoint, forms in Stream, OneNote, Teams, and next steps. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. Now, if you have any questions, all right, so you'll notice on your screen, if you hover your mouse over your screen, you'll see there's a little Q&A button. You can push on that and type your questions in, and myself and Steve will do our best during the course of this webinar to get in and answer those questions for you. Okay, so again, if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A setting as we go through, and we're going to try and answer those for you in real time. If you're watching this webinar as a recording, I'm still going to give you some options for how to ask your questions and how to find things out as well. All right, so the first thing we're looking at is the Microsoft Educator community, and that is found at education.microsoft.com. That's education.microsoft.com. Okay, and the easiest way to navigate yourself around the Educator community through the web page is to just come up here to the top, and you'll see here where it says training. All right, now you've got individual courses. All right, so I'm going to click on that first. I want to show you the individual courses. So if you're looking for courses around something like assessment, for example, I start to type in the word assessment, and you'll see it will actually bring up a number of courses focused specifically on assessment, right? And if you wanted to look on something more, say, around forms, for example, which is what we're focusing on, then this will actually bring up the courses around forms. Now, one in particular I want to show you is this one here, Microsoft Forms Creating Authentic Assessments. It's a really good course. It's going to talk a lot about what we're going to look at today, and that's really worth diving into as well. Now, the other thing I want to show you is what's called learning paths, and learning paths are found by clicking here on training and then coming down to learning paths, and then you can jump into a course. I'm going to jump into this one here. And you can see here there's groups of courses all put together for you, all right? And they go in a sort of linear fashion, and there's some really good courses in there for you as well. We've got lesson plans, we've got information on our educator programs, and we've also got other resources. But the thing I want to stress is remembering to sign in using your school email address and password, create an account, because it will keep a record. A lot of these courses hit the AITSL standards, so that means it will count as PD according to your teacher registration board in your state. All right, so keep that in mind and make sure that you sign in so it keeps a record of everything that you do in this space. Okay, now the next thing we want to look at is signing in to Office. So we can do that by going to www.office.com. All right, and you can sign in just using your regular school email address and password. All right, so that's the one that will usually get you in. If you're not sure how to sign into Office 365 from your school, please reach out to your local peak body, department, diocese, or that kind of thing, or even just ask around your school to find out what you need to do to sign in. But for most of us, it's just going to be our usual email address and school password. And that will bring us in to office.com. And here we are at my office.com start page, the Office 365 portal. And when I click on forms, what happens is it will launch forms for me. Okay, now I've already opened it up in case I had a bit of internet trouble today. So these are forms that I have already built. Okay, so you can see here, these are forms that I have built previously, and we're going to jump into this one a little bit later and have a look. But I want to take you first, I want to take you through, I want to show you how we create an assessment and create a form. Now there's two types of forms you can create. One is form, and that's basically for survey. Okay, so it's not going to self-mark, it's not going to be used really as an assessment. Instead, it's the kind of thing we'd use with SurveyMonkey or one of these other sort of survey tools, and it's great. But what I want to focus on today is creating a quiz. All right, so it's sort of Americanized. I call it a quiz. We'd probably call it an assessment or a test, but that's exactly what it creates. Okay, so remembering that when we open up forms, if we don't want it to have points and self-marking and these other things, which we'll have a look at, we can just create a survey. But for the rest of us and wanting to use this in an assessment sense, we want to click on quiz. So when I create a quiz, you can see here it takes me straight in. It's obviously untitled, so I'd have to give it a title. So I'm going to call this TAS DOE Start, right? I could call it whatever I wanted, right? I can call it Science Quiz, Maths Quiz, anything that I wanted to call it, or Test. I can put a little description in there, and then I can also create questions. Okay, so this is where I create my questions. So I add new, and you can see here I've got different kinds of questions that I could add. I've got choice. Okay, so that is true and false, multiple choice one answer, multiple choice multiple answers. I've got the ability to create text questions, short answer and long answer. I certainly wouldn't be using forms for an essay writing assessment, although when we get to upload, you'll see that you could use it in that sense, but I certainly wouldn't use the text question, I should say, for essay questions. You've got the ability to do a rating question. That's going to be more for your survey style than your quiz. You've got the ability to put in dates. So if you're asking people for their date of birth or the date that they started something, etc., you can put that in there. You've got the ability to rank, put things in order. Now that's a great one for quizzes and for tests, because it's really cool to be able to, you know, set students up to put things in alphabetical order, or put it in, for example, in a history question, you could put order of events and things like that. Likert and Net Promoter Score, they are very much those questions that are related to surveys. So I'm going to skip over them if you don't mind, but file upload, we can actually allow people to upload files. So students can actually upload files, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's what that looks like there. That's how we would create a question. So if I was to create a question, let's create a multiple choice question, I could put things in. We'll go through this in a minute and how we do it, but I can also add another question, for example, which might be my text type question. Now, when we come back to my title, we can see here I can add a picture. Okay, so I can use Bing to search for pictures. We can set that down as, you know, respecting copyright, so we're not just throwing, you know, any old picture. We can also upload from our OneDrive and our local device as well. Okay, so that's how we would do that. Now, when we come down to our question type, we have the ability to add a question, but we also have the ability to add a video. So we can embed video, and I'll show you that a little bit later as well. You can see down here that with my question, now in this sense, it's a multiple choice. So I could make that a true or a false. Okay, so it's still technically multiple choice, but I've only given two options, called it true and false. I could say forms is great. All right, true or false. Now, what I can do here is if I wanted this to be multiple answers, not just two true and false, I could add more options by clicking on there, and we'll have a look at that a little bit later too. All right, again, I can add a picture, I can add a video. I can also decide whether I want this to be a required question. If I click on that, that means that my students must submit some sort of answer into that question, or they won't be able to finish the quiz. I can also set the number of points, so I can weight my questions. They don't have to all be worth 1 point. This one might be worth 1 point, and then the next question down here, which is my short answer, that might be worth 15 points, all right? And I can set that. Now you can see here with my short answer, I can turn that into a long answer, which is going to give me more room to move around as well. Okay, I can order these, so I can move this question up, I can move it down as well. And then the other thing that I've got here on my ellipses, when I click on this, as you can see, I could make my questions, instead of appearing with all answers sitting like this, I could make it a drop down. Okay, so when we look at the preview up here, you can see that the students actually get to choose that way. Okay, so that's what a drop down looks like. I've also got the ability to do maths questions. I'll show you that a little bit later. Subtitle, and I can also do branching. But again, I'll take you in and look at that a little bit later. Another thing I can do is I can create a theme. Okay, so I can set a nice theme. Instead of it looking bland and plain, I've got all these different themes that are actually templates, as well as down here. And I could also upload an existing image, okay, if I wanted to. So why don't we make this one about computers? And there we go, look at that. All right, so when the students get that, it looks really, really nice. So let's get rid of that there. Okay, so that's basically how we set it up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you in, I'm going to show you these question types in one that I've already created. All right, so this is my Office 365 summative assessment. What I use this for is when I do face-to-face workshops, I actually share this out at the end and I gauge how well I've done and how well people have actually understood. Okay, so you can see here, this is the teacher's view. All right, so this is the creation view where I'm building. All right, so have a look here. I've got that date of birth question, so I've asked them for their date of birth. I've also got here a true and false, and you can see I've got the true and false question here. And then I've actually told Forms which is the correct answer, because Forms isn't going to know. All right, so in this sense, Office 365 Pro Plus can be installed on your laptop. You know what, I'm going to actually change that, because that's now Office 365 apps. It's actually Microsoft. That's how old this is. Microsoft 365 apps can be installed on your laptop. Now that is true, so I have to tell Forms that is the correct answer. If I wanted this one to be the correct answer, it's easy, I just click it there. All right, now I also have the option at this point of giving some feedback, right, generic feedback to everybody. So if I wanted my student, for example, if my student got it wrong and I wanted to give them some feedback, what I might do is what I've got here is I can say, please see page 25 of your textbook. All right, so what'll happen is if they get it wrong, it'll come with that feedback right then and there. All right, and I don't have to put that in there depending on how I structure my assessment. So that's the first one, true and false. All right, the second kind of question we have is multiple choice. You can see here I've added a graphic in there as well, and it's multiple choice, single answer. All right, so the question is, Office 365 can be accessed from which of these devices? And the answer is all of the above. Now I haven't put any feedback or anything like that, except for when they get it right. Okay, now the next kind of question I've got is multiple choice, multiple answer. Okay, so all I have to do is click on multiple answers here, and then I have the ability to click multiple answers. Just remember, if you're going to do that, make sure that you build that into the question, okay, because you don't want to mislead the kids. So select all that apply, for example, is what I've put there. Okay, so that's multiple choice, multiple answer. The next one is the ordering. So what I've done here is I've told the students that I want to place these tools, I want you to place these tools in alphabetical order. Now, when I've created the question, I have to make sure that my answers are in the order that I want the students to be able to do. When they get it, it will be randomly mixed up, but I have to make sure that I put it in the order, because Forms doesn't know that I'm asking an alphabetical order question or a history question or anything like that. All right, so that's one of the cool things that we can do as well. The next one I've got here is short answer. Okay, now the thing about short answer, you can see this question here. This food is very popular in England. What and chips? Now the answer is fish. Okay, so that's obviously got a single definitive answer, but if I had variations of that answer, then I might want to add another potential answer. I might write pie, okay, because it's also a pie and chips is very popular in England as well. All right, so you can see there that multiple choice, single answer, multiple choice, multiple answer, true and false is a kind of multiple choice, and then we've got this short answer as well. Now, it's really important that we make sure that we put the right answers in. Caps isn't important, okay? Capitalization is not important, but you just need to make sure that you spell it right, etc. And if you think that kids have, you know, if there's alternate spellings or spellings that they often will use, then just, you know, jump in and throw that in there as well. All right, we've also got the long answer question in here as well, okay? So you can see I turn that into a long answer, okay? And you can see here, by the way, I just want to remind you that I've actually been giving these all points as I've been going along and weighting those as well. I've got the ability to embed a video. So this is one of those rating questions, but I embedded a video and the students can play that directly from forms. They don't have to go outside of that to outside of the form to watch the video. And we've also got maths questions. Now, I want to make something really clear. I am not a maths teacher. Okay, so I really encourage you, I'm going to try and demo this now, but I really encourage you to, if you're a maths teacher, to go in and have a play with this, because I'm probably not going to do it justice. I've tried to build this the best I can. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create another maths question. All right, and so this is going to actually be a multiple choice question. Oh, where do we go? So this is actually a multiple choice question, but I've set it as a maths question. Okay, so I have to make sure that I tick that. So I might say, solve this equation. All right, and then I want to enter the equation. Now, when I do that, I get the ability to type my questions in. Okay, so mine might be 5x times 3x equals 156. Okay, so that's my equation, right? Now I might want them to solve for x, so I'm going to put in here solve for x, okay, like that. And what happens is Forms has actually created for me 4 responses, one of them being correct. Okay, so what it does is it creates responses for me, but it also solves it for me. So all I have to do is click add all, and that throws that in, and look, it's already said that this is the correct answer. Okay, now the other thing I can do, remembering, is I want to make sure that I shuffle the options so the first one doesn't always appear. So make sure that you tick shuffle options there. Now I'm going to delete that one because I've got this one that I created earlier, which is part of my little demo, and that's going to make sense to you a little bit later when we jump into OneNote and look at the way we can use it with OneNote. Okay, so we've looked at maths questions. Now, when we look at the preview, this is going to show me what it looks like to the student. Okay, so it's just a short little truncated view of my form. This is what it looks like on a computer, and this is what it's going to look like on a phone. Okay, now the other thing I want to share with you, though, before we jump out of this, is I want to share with you about what's called branching. Okay, so when you look at my questions, if we come down to, oh, I'm going to click up here, sorry, and then I'm going to go to settings. Why is it not letting me branch? That's okay. I think it's because I'm signed into the wrong tenant, but we have the ability, you'll see the branching icon will sit up here, or maybe it sits inside the question. There it is, so it's moved. So there it is here, add branching. Okay, so when I click on that, what branching does is it says, what do you want the order of the questions to be depending on answer? So for example, if my students got the first one true, then it will go to the next question. If they get it wrong, then I've told it that I want it to go to which question. In this case, I want it to go to question 11. Now, the reason I've got it to go to question 11 is because question 11 shows them a video and then asks them that question again. But you could do anything you want with this, right? You could make it that if they get the question right, they go to a harder question. If they get the question wrong, they go to an easier question. It's called adaptive testing, and it's what happens with NAPLAN. So you can actually set it to decide where it's going to go based on the responses that the students give, and that's called branching. All right, so we've looked at how we create a quiz, we've looked at our different question types, etc. But now let's go over and check our results. So coming back to our form, here's all the questions, but we've got our responses over here. Now, what I've done for you is I've actually got 7 people to actually complete this quiz for me. But if I didn't, what would happen is all these snapshots of answers would all be blank. And as students are inputting and submitting that quiz in real time, this will start to update. So what this does, this back end, it gives me a picture of my entire class. So I get that formative data as well as summative data, but I get that formative data to look at what do I need to work on. So for example, if only half of my class got this question right, I know that as a teacher, I'm going to want to jump back in and work on that. Whereas over here, I can look and see everybody did okay except for one student. So, and I can drill down and see who's who. But this is really good. It gives me that sort of bird's eye view. All right. So these are my responses, and this is my response as a whole class. Now, if I wanted to look at individual students, what I do is I come over here and I click Review Answers. Now, when I review answers, you can see here I've got all my students. All right, so here they all are. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 or 7 of my students. Now, as I scroll down, you can see here that some of these questions are not worth any points, but the ones that are, if there's a definitive answer, they're auto-graded. Okay, so this one is just multiple choice, single answer, auto-graded. This one is multiple choice, one answer, also auto-graded. This one here is multiple choice, multiple answers. It will not distinguish between getting a portion of them right or all of them wrong. Okay, so you need to get all of them right for it to get correct points. But again, I've given it a point and it's auto-graded. My alphabetizing is also auto-graded. Again, it has to be perfect. There's no room for slight error. But look down here at question number 7. In 25 words or less, please explain how a teacher might use Office 365 with their most difficult class. And my student here says, I have nothing to say here, I'm just typing. Well, that's a shame, but you can see up here that it says needs review because forms can't assess this question. Okay, there's no definitive answer. So I have to go in and as a teacher, I have to give that a score. I'm going to give that 3 points. And I could, if I wanted, give feedback at that point as well. This is directly to that student. I could say too short, mate. Okay, just something like that or whatever I want to say in there, and the student will get that feedback when I post the scores. I come down here as well and you can see here's my upload question. Okay, so what I've done there is I've asked students to upload their data as a spreadsheet, or it could be an essay, it could be anything. And then what would happen is I would just click on this, it would open up the spreadsheet or open up the document. I can give them, read it, give them the scores that I want, come back here and say that was fantastic, 15 points. All right, and then it takes me bang to the next student. Okay, we just let that load. It's a little bit slow there. All right, and so I go to my next student and I'm able to do the same thing again. And I can scroll through my different students. Okay, I can find them like this, or I can go one at a time. And I just know that I just have to come down to this question. Okay, the one that I'm perhaps working on, and then I can give them feedback specifically on that. Now, what that does, okay, is it totally reduces the amount of marking that you as a teacher have to do. Okay, so you don't have to be worried as a teacher about going through and marking those sort of laborious, mundane questions that everyone's got right, or etc. It's just really, really easy for the computer to do it. It's going to reduce your marking. But what else we're going to be able to do? Okay, so what I can do is I can post my scores, right? So when I've marked them all, I could send that through and my students can actually get their results. The other thing I can do, the other thing that I can do is I can import all my data into Excel. So I'm going to click on this Open in Excel button. You can see it's downloading here to my local machine. Click on the Open File. And what it does is the spreadsheet opens. Now you can see here, some of my students have been marked, but not all, okay? But what it's recorded here is it's recorded the order that they signed in on, the start time, the finish time, okay? So you think about this, if you were actually grabbing this data physically outside of a device, there is no way you'd be able to collect this data, and you probably wouldn't even be bothered. But nevertheless, this will actually give me really good data that will show me how long my students took. All right, so if I've got a student that took 3 hours to complete this assessment, I know something's up. If I've got a student that finishes it in 15 seconds, I know that something's up. It'll record their email address, their username, their name, and their score after I've marked it. Now, the other thing is it will also record all the feedback and what time I posted their grades. Now you can see here, it's recorded not only their answer, but also their scores. And if I give them feedback for each individual question, it will actually record all that. So if I was doing this manually on a pen and paper test, I would probably just record their score out of 25. That's probably all I would record, but this keeps everything for me. So as a teacher, I've got so much data, but I haven't had to collect that manually. The machine's done it for me. So it's self-marked where it can. I've gone in and done a little bit of manual marking, but nothing like I used to. And then it's collected all that data into a spreadsheet for me in no time at all. It's going to be a real time saver for you. But I want you to come back to this remote access time as well. The ability to give feedback, that instant feedback as they're doing the form is crucial, or the ability for them to get the feedback straight after they've completed the assessment, or I can even come and give them feedback later. And we know that feedback is crucial to assessments. All right, let's keep going. All right, so in terms of settings, coming into our quiz over here, first of all, I want to show you the settings. When I click up here and I click on settings, do I want to show the results automatically? Maybe not, because my students, I'm not doing it all at the same time. They could call each other, or kids are away if we're back at school. So I may not want to show all the results automatically, but I can if I want. Do I want only people in my organization to respond? That is, that makes them sign in, probably. It'll record their name. And do I want to set up one response per person? Maybe not. I might want them to do this multiple times as they, to show their growth, etc. I've got options here, a start date, an end date. Do I want to accept responses? That is basically turn the form on or off. I can shuffle the questions. I can also set a customized thank you message, which will include their name if they sign in. Do I want to give them an email receipt to say that they've completed the assessment? Do I also want to get notified every time a student completes that assessment? That's really cool features there for you, especially in a remote context. Now, the other thing is the ability to share. So please go back and have a look at this video if I go a little bit fast. But first of all, when I want to send and collect responses, that is, I want to send it out to people that are doing the quiz, I have two options. I can make it anonymous, that is, people don't need to sign in, or I can make sure that students are signing in using their email address and password. All right. When I share that out, I can create a link. Okay. Copy that link there. I can set up a QR code. All right, so I can send that out to them. I could post it on the classroom wall, whatever's going on there. I've got an embed code so I can throw it into other applications, and I can also send it as an email. So that's how I send that out to my students to actually complete. Now, the second one I've got here is what's called share as a template. So this is when I'm working with my colleagues. So what I could do is I could say, this is a fantastic assessment. I want my colleagues to be able to use this with their class. If I share it as a template and share that link, they will get a copy of that to download into their forms, and it's not connected anymore to mine. So it's like giving them a copy of my doc file, right? But instead, they've now got a copy of that, and they can make changes, and it's not going to affect my original. The other thing I can do is what's called share to collaborate. So that is, I might want to work specifically on this form. I don't want to create another version of it. I just want this one. And I want to I'll do questions 1 to 7, and my friend will do, my colleague teacher will do questions, 8 to 12, for example, and we can build it that way. Okay, so that's where we want to work together. So again, send, collect responses, share as a template, and share to collaborate. Okay. So that's settings and sharing. Now, the next thing that's cool about forms, because you're going to look at this and you're going, okay, Troy, that's cool, but it's very text-based, it's multiple choice, it's ordering, okay, but there's a lot of different kinds of questions and ways that I would want to use this. First thing I want to share with you is how we would use it in PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to skip across. I want to show you one that I've actually embedded. So what I've done is I've actually embedded this into my PowerPoint. So right now I'm presenting to you as a PowerPoint, and if I was to build this, I might build a PowerPoint for my students that's all about the great things in science or maths or geography, whatever, and then partway through I may want to throw in an assessment, A, to check that they're paying attention, or B, also to just gauge their understanding. All right, so what I've done, and I'm going to show you how to do it in a minute, but just the next slide comes along, and this is actually an interactive slide, so I'm moving that there, and the student can actually do the quiz themselves inside the PowerPoint. So I can build that in, and that data will come back to me, even though I've sent this PowerPoint out to 15, 25 different kids. All right, now how do we do that? Well, let me show you. So I'm just got to grab my PowerPoint deck and drag that up for you. Just give me a moment, got to find it. Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up here. And I'm just going to maximize that so you can see. So this is the back end, right? So here's my notes telling me all about the great things to tell you. Now what happens is when I come to my page, it's really simple. I've already built the form, okay, in Forms. And then what I do is I click up here on Insert, and then I've got a Forms button, okay? When I click on the Forms button, what happens is it opens up the Forms dialog box. Just give it a moment, and it's going to look at all the forms that I have built, and here they are. And there's my Office 365 summative assessment form. I click on that, click on Insert, and bang, it builds that in. All right, so that's what it looks like as it builds out. Give it a moment to load, and then when it's finished, of course, it lives in here. Okay, so when the students look at it, they're going to see it looking like that, but I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like at the back end. And let me just delete that slide for us. All right, so that's how we use that inside inside Forms. Now, if you're not seeing that Forms button, let me remind you, we talked about this before in one of our earlier webinars. You need to make sure that you get the latest, greatest version of Office, that is Office Microsoft 365 apps. All right, by clicking on this Office button, install it, and then you will get the latest, greatest version of PowerPoint. And that will definitely have the Forms button in there, because you may be using, you know, Office 2013, Office 2016 and wondering where the Forms button is, but that's how you access that. All right, so make sure that you grab that so you get all the cool features that I've been talking about today. Okay, now let's talk about what it looks like in OneNote. So when we come into OneNote, and again, we did a OneNote workshop last time, so please go back and look at that. But I can, inside my class notebook or inside any OneNote page, I can throw my assessments into a OneNote page. So you can see here I've got the insert button, and look, there's my Forms button again. So I'm in the OneNote for Windows 10 app, right? I click on my Forms button, and look at this. It just grabs that Forms dialog box like it did before, and I can come over here and click on my Office 365 assessment, throws the link in, and there you go. The other thing I could do is I could just grab the share link, which we saw in the form before. So I could come into my form, I can just come over here and grab that link, and I can paste that into my OneNote pages as well. But that's how we insert a form into OneNote. Okay, now the other thing I want to share with you, there's a really cool integration that has been built into Forms. And I'm just going to come up, oops, excuse me, it's actually this one here, assessment ready. I'm just going to drop this down. So you can see here, if I've got my forms, now math teachers, you're probably looking at this going, I can't really use this for maths very well. Once you embed a form into OneNote, it's going to bring maths totally alive. Now look, we've got that maths question that we had down here. Okay, so the maths question down here says 5x squared plus 3y minus 15x equals. Okay, now it's really hard, obviously, for the students to be able to do their working out inside a form. But once we put it in here, the student can actually type their question, okay, in, or if they've got a stylus enabled device, they can actually show their working out in here as well. Okay, now what that means is for a teacher who's built this into Class Notebook, when I see that student's got that question wrong, I know where this is embedded in their class notebook. I can use in my class notebook settings, I can use my review student work, go straight to this assessment for every single student and be looking at their working out. All right. So what this means is it will auto grade, bang, but the kids have got it wrong. It will alert me, right? And then I can jump in here and have a look. Now, what this means as well for the students, right? And yes, you can turn this off, what I'm about to show you. But what this means for the student is if I was giving them some sort of formative assessment, so forget about summative assessment, but I was giving them a formative assessment and they did a question, okay, and they got it wrong, but they don't know why. All right. Now, the students may not see you for a couple of days, or in a remote context, they're not going to see you at all, or, you know, it's really difficult. So what we've got is we've actually got the maths button. Okay, so the maths feature lives inside OneNote. So what happens is if I highlight my piece of my equation there, and then I click on maths. It could be the same whether it's typed or whether it's handwritten. I click on maths, look what happens, okay? It's actually recognizing this handwritten equation. Now, if I click into maths, it'll print it out to the page like this, but it's going to ask me, Troy, what do you want to do? Okay, now I'm not a maths teacher. All right, I'm sorry about this. I'm not a maths teacher, but I may want it to evaluate. Okay, and actually, let's go to differentiate, right? So let's differentiate X like that, and it's actually going to find the answer for me. Now, you might look at that and go, hey, you know, they can already do that with, you know, other apps, etc. Where it gets really cool though, remember it's just done it from a handwritten piece of handwritten equation, but look at this, when I click show steps, it's actually going to take me step by step through how to solve that equation, whatever the hell this means. I was a grade 1 teacher for a very long time, forgive me. All right, but I can actually get those answers there, right? As well as I can get the step-by-step instructions. So it's a tutor, which is pretty amazing. Now, the other thing that it will do, and if you have a look at this, let me just delete this one because I've done that before, is I can generate a practice quiz. So what will happen is Forms will actually look at that question and it will create another question exactly like that one. Generate a practice quiz. It says, how many of these questions do you want? I'm just going to go with 3. Let that kick in. Okay, and what it's done is it's now, based on this question here, it's actually created, integrate, whatever the heck that means, it's created questions exactly like the other one. Look at that, it's numeral x squared plus numeral second integer, etc. All right, so all that in there is actually built so the student can go in, practice what they've learned. If they get it wrong, well, they can do that whole process, write it out here and do that whole process again. So that's a really cool integration. So maths teachers, again, forgive me for not being a maths teacher and probably making an absolute fool of myself there. But once you get in maths teachers, you're going to see some amazing stuff that you can do with the integration of Forms and OneNote. Now, hopefully that's opened your eyes to the ability for Forms to be much more than just multiple choice, you know, tests, that you can actually, you know, integrate the maths features and everything. It's phenomenal. What about if we want to put a form inside a video? Well, in curiosity show fashion, I am glad you asked. Look at this. So we've got this tool called Stream. So Stream is your video housing tool. Inside Office 365. I'm just going to pause that there because that's going to start to play. Now, I've created a video. This is actually our last webinar that we actually ran, and I might send, I want to make that video available to my students because it's some sort of, you know, lesson that I've recorded, whether it's been inside Teams or inside PowerPoint. I upload it into here. But what's great is when you come over here with interactivity, I have the ability to add a form. Now the little difference is I don't have the ability to actually bring up that dialog box. So I need to come back to the form. I need to copy the link. Okay. Then I come in here and I paste the URL. Okay. And then I can rename it. I can call it something else. In this case, I'm going to show you TAS DOE Forms Demo. That's what I'm going to call it today, but it could have been called my Office 365 summative assessment. Where do I want to put it on the timeline in the video? Well, I may want it to be at this point. Okay, so I can watch my video. It's exactly where I want it to be. I want the video to stop, and I want the kids to actually grab that, have that access. Okay, so there it is there. So it's sitting there at 2804. There's one I did a little bit earlier, but you can see here that it's sitting at 2804. So what happens is if we take this a little bit, this video a little bit further back, okay, the video would play. And then all of a sudden it would come in, bang, it would stop and the form will open up, okay? And the students can come in here and they can complete the form. As soon as they've completed the form, they can click continue the video, pictures, and the video will continue playing. I can put multiple forms into that video. All right, now the next thing I want to show you is Teams, okay? So the ability to bring forms into Teams. So what we've done, let me just come back up here to my Teams page. So I've got these multiple channels, and let's say I'm in the literacy channel and I want to throw my assessment inside here. Okay, I can do that simply by clicking the plus tab, then clicking Forms, and look at this, it opens up my Forms dialog box. Do I want to create a brand new form or do I want to add an existing form? Well, I'm going to go into an existing form, and here are my my forms. These are my personal forms, and I've got other forms that are actually inside the team. All right, so I can choose which one I want. Now, how do I want to share this? Do I want to share this so that the kids can give me their responses on the spot, or I may want to share it with teachers and I want to show the results or even collaborate? Okay, so there's 3 ways I can share that. But in this case, we're just going to throw it up to collect responses. All right, and then what that does is it creates a tab at the top, and that tab, whenever you click on that, it's going to take you straight to that form. All right, now those of you that have done my Teams workshop webinar are going to know, hey, what about assignments, right? Wouldn't it be great? And yes, you can integrate forms into your assignments. So what I've done here is I've already created one, but if I was to create a form or create an assignment, when I click create, I get the options to create an assignment or create a quiz. A quiz is obviously going to be our form assessment, right? So I would just click on that and it would open up the dialogue and off we'd go. But I want to show you one that I've already built. So that's this one here, okay? So what happens is for my students, this is what they see in the student view. They come into their assignment tab and they can open this up and they can click on forms, okay? And then it will start, they can start the form inside the assignment. It will collect all that data, okay, and then it will bring that back for me as a teacher into my assignment portal. Okay, so you can see here if the students had completed it, I would get their scores. I'd be able to give them feedback through assignments, and I can see, you know, whether they've handed it in or not, etc. All right, now when I come into my grades, my grade book, the grades tab, you can see here it's actually going to bring in all my assignments, whether they're forms assignments or not forms assignments. All right, so it's going to bring that in. Pretty cool. Now remembering too, we've got forms in assignments inside Teams. We've got forms as a tab inside Teams, but we can also, because we can bring PowerPoint in, we can have forms inside PowerPoint inside Teams, or forms inside OneNote inside Teams, or forms inside Stream inside Teams. Okay, so that's the power of Teams is bringing everything together. So in terms of an assessment tool, forms with Teams, second to none. Okay, we're almost done, but before we finish, I do want to draw your attention to 2 really cool integrations that have happened quite recently with Teams. The first is Kahoot, and the second is Flipgrid. So teachers have been using Kahoot for absolute years now, but now there's this deep integration with Teams. So teachers can launch live Kahoots without leaving the Teams application, with Kahoot launched by screen sharing from a Teams virtual meeting. So live Kahoots now offer an engaging and social assessment experience inside Teams, still encouraging that friendly competition which helps hybrid learning classes of all sizes continue to connect. Teachers can also conveniently assign self-paced challenges to their classes within Teams. Reminders are periodically sent to the class, which ensures a more connected and social experience as the game unfolds, culminating in the final podium shared in the class where the challenge ends. The teacher can then access a full report on the class performance afterwards, which is great for understanding which content was particularly challenging. Gives you that formative data. So I'm going to let my good mate Mike Tholfsen now show you how to use the Kahoot app inside Teams.
So first off, I'm in a class team. I'm going to go up here and click the plus button to add a tab. And I'm going to search for Kahoot. And there it is. I'm going to click Kahoot and I'm going to add it. Now I'm just going to log into my Kahoot account and then hit save. Now I'm logged in and save. Now you can see all of my Kahoots are loaded as a teacher right here, and I have 2 options for each Kahoot. I can present or assign. Now present is the basic one. I'm going to show the more interesting one to start with, which is assign. So I'll click assign, and we're going to make the start date on a Monday, June 1st. We'll randomize the question order, and I'm going to hit create. Okay, so it sent the challenge out. Now let's switch to the student and see what that looks like. So here I am signed in as a student. I'm Henry. And you can see on the post, there's a new challenge that came from Kahoot, and I can say open challenge. And it's getting ready, and it'll have me enter my nickname. And it's going to load up. Here's my Justin Chando trivia. Here's the challenge. How old is Justin Chando? Oh, this is really hard. I'm not sure. Oh, what is it? But you get the idea. So I can now, as a student, get that challenge. Now back as a teacher, the other option I just showed assign, I can just do present, which is a regular Kahoot. So I'm just going to click present like I normally would. And it's loaded everything up. I'll just choose classic. And here we go, ready to join. I'm going to join up really quick. There's the music. Okay, I'm in. I'm going to hit start. Okay, Justin Chando Trivia, are you ready? Anyways, you get the idea. I have the full power of Kahoot right here inside of Teams, and I can have my classroom all in the same place.
Thanks for that, Mike. That was absolutely brilliant. So now I'm excited to share with you how you can combine these two community-focused platforms. You can engage your community by sharing all your Flipgrid topics directly in your classes via Teams. To start, log into your Flipgrid admin account at flipgrid.com. You can share any of your existing grids or topics. But this, for example, let's say a teacher creates a new topic in a 4th period biology class to share with their class team. They're discussing cellular respiration and they want to simply check their students' understanding thus far. Title the topic Cellular Respiration Check-In, set the time limit to 30 seconds and jot down a quick prompt. You'll see there are even more options with the new topic builder, but this is all you'll need to get rolling. So I'll click create topic. Immediately upon confirmation, all you need to do is click that snazzy share to Teams button. Now you have a few options. You can either share to a channel in your class team or create an assignment. If you want all your students to participate, simply pick assignment. If your students are familiar with Flipgrid, then you won't need to set this up without much additional information. Simply pick up a team and title it. 20 points sounds great, and Friday at 5 p.m. is plenty of time. You'll see the unique Flipgrid topic link is already filled in, and now all you need to do is click this. That's all. Your students have been notified via Teams. All right, so next steps. Let's talk about what we've got moving forward. So you can access my blog post for today at aka.ms/T4T-assessment. Go in, jump in, have a look at that. Don't forget to jump into education.microsoft.com, education.microsoft.com. You can access this course in particular, Microsoft Forms Creating Authentic Assessments. I think that's an absolutely wonderful course for you to go in. And remember, you'll get 1 hour's worth of PD recognised by your teacher registration board. Another website I want to draw your attention to is the Forms support page. So support.office.com/forms. You can see here there's a couple of categories around using forms. You can also type your questions in and they can be answered for you by the bot. So jump in there and have a look at that. Another one I want to draw your attention to though is support.office.com/education. When you get into that page, there is a section around forms and all about how to use forms as a student. All right, and as a teacher, so jump in and have a look at that. The other one is our MEC newsletter, so aka.ms/MEC newsletter, aka.ms/MEC newsletter. Please jump in to that website, sign up to our newsletter and get updated on the latest, greatest things happening in the Microsoft space. Now, as I said, this was the second of a number of Transform for Tomorrow webinars. So if you want to get into the others, the ones that have not yet run, please go to the aka.ms/Transform for Tomorrow webpage and you'll see all about how to sign up for that as well. Okay, so there's been some great ones already run and there's some other ones there for you to sign up, but you'll also get links for the webinar recordings if you missed any of those. All right, so there's some really good stuff going on there, aka.ms/Transform for Tomorrow. If you want to connect with me, you can. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Hojasaram. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Troy Waller. Also on Facebook, Troy Waller Microsoft. You can find me on there. And also you can, you'll know it's me when you do a search because you'll see this little avatar and that's how you know that it's me. Okay, so that's it from me. I hope you got a lot out of this webinar, lots of links, lots of things to explore, and I hope you start using forms with your students as this new hybrid model of education kicks in around the country. Bye-bye.